answer your questions and stay up to date with what all of our chapters are doing around the world. And Ian,
Hello, my name's Ian Roy. I'm a professor at Brandeis University, and I help organize our education conversations. Maybe over to Jonathan.
Oh, I'm Jonathan. I've been involved with e-NABLE for a year and a half or so. I guess I'm a volunteer that kind of does a lot of stuff. So if you have any technical questions or whatever, I'm around.
Much appreciated too. I'm
John, why
John
don't you
Schultz,
go?
co-founder of e-NABLE. Happy to be here. And by the way, in transit and about to get a rental car, so I'll be coming and going.
Erica, do you want to go?
Sure. Hi, I'm Erica. I'm a recent graduate at Brandeis University, and I worked a lot on computational linguistics. And I don't believe Ben is here, but he was in the town hall, and he and I are hoping to work on a project for Enable to leverage deep reasoning LLMs to provide automatic resizing for prosthetics. Nice to meet you all.
And Erica has some slides to show us today, Ian.
Excellent. I can't wait to see.
Should I pull them
Maybe
up?
we could, can you popcorn it over to someone else who hasn't introduced yet? We'll finish our introduction.
Hi, I'm Gatha. I can quickly turn on my camera, but I'm walking my dog, just trying to get out when it's not raining out here. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here.
Hello, Gunnar.
Yeah, I came across Enable through LinkedIn, and I do understand my husband's been a member, but I don't think he's active. I want to change that. I want to be able to contribute. So I'm yet to find out how I can contribute, but Sarah just mentioned that I could just pop in here and figure out what's the best way.
Cool.
I have worked with, I've interacted with 3D printers who have been working in volunteer capacity, but it was not a formal group. It was primarily for my son. But again, this is my next attempt at trying to kind of bring things together in many ways. So nice being here. Good morning, good afternoon.
Great to have you. Thanks for coming. And someone else who hasn't introduced yet.
My name is Sana. I'm just a high school junior. I'm about to go into 12th grade, actually. I'm a student in India. And yeah, I'm really passionate about pursuing biomedical sciences abroad. And I just really love building things. So I came across the Enable forum and I've been trying my hand at 3D printing. I think I've slowly gotten the hang of it. And yeah, I'm really excited to contribute to whatever best I can, to the best of my ability. Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming. And who else hasn't introduced themselves yet? Eli?
Yeah, this is actually Ben. I need to change it because my friend borrowed my
Oh,
Zoom
yeah.
account. But I'm from Brandeis University. I'm with Erica, working on the same project.
Super cool. Thanks for coming. I can't wait to see your stuff. I think that's everyone. We could jump right into the slides. Erica, I'm so excited to see what you all have been thinking about.
Sure. I sent a share request so I can pull it up. So just for a quick agenda, first we're going to reintroduce the project and talk a little bit more about our motivation and what we're hoping to produce. Then we're going to talk about our timeline, and then we're going to open the floor up for discussion and feedback because the reason we're presenting this is we want to hear from everyone about how we can improve this project to make it more feasible and something that we think will also be useful for the Enable community. So first off, this is our whole team. Just Ben and I are here presenting, but there are three more of us, also Jerem, Alana, and Danny. The problem that we were motivated by is that there's a lot of templates for the prosthetics, but we've observed that it's a very resource-intensive task, either using the manual method, there's quite a big skill curve in order to understand how to do it properly, and the less time-intensive method using measurements doesn't produce sufficiently fitted prosthetics. So and AI tools that we're aware of are either proprietary and cost quite a bit of money or aren't capable of actually performing resizing among the work that they're able to do with 3D printable prosthetics. So our proposed solution is to make a chatbot that can provide low-level adjustments to these prosthetic templates according to text prompts. Specifically, we want to focus on resizing, as we mentioned earlier, but also other simple readjustments should theoretically be possible. So for our project steps, we're still in very early development, but what we hope to do is to fine-tune a language model that can receive the existing STL files as an input and then output a remixed version of that STI file with the expected adjustments or the resizing. So from here, what we really need to do is a literature review, as we're hoping to leverage any existing published research on using LLMs for the modification of STL files. Then we want to generate clear walkthroughs for how to customize the prosthetics as a base function for our chatbot. As we were talking about in the town hall, there will be specific user requests that the chatbot we don't expect will be able to perform well on. And as an alternative for those tasks, we'd like it to guide users how to do it manually. From there, we'll be able to select and fine-tune a reasoning model in order to provide the necessary adjustments, and then we need to establish a quality assurance system to ensure that the results that we're making are able to be printed and are actually useful. So for the timeline, we are breaking this down into three phases. The first phase, I would say, is the research phase, in which we are going to spend some time learning about CAD, as Ben and I are new to this, and we're very excited to take some steps into 3D printing a hand. The next phase will be the building phase, in which we clean and then fine-tune a reasoning model. And the last phase is providing evaluation metrics and building a front end so that users can interact with the bot. We're hoping to apply for an e-NABLE grant to work on this. And these costs are not hard, but basically what we estimate from what we know at this point, a little money towards personnel to support the work of the team, some money towards computing, which I think is the most necessary aspect of this project, as APIs for reasoning models cost a certain amount of money per tokens. STL files, when broken down into tokens, are incredibly dense. So even running just a couple of hundred tests will probably cost a couple of cents to a few dollars per test, so it can stack up pretty quickly. And then we also are looking for some funding for materials so that we can produce prototypes of the modified STL files produced by the chatbot and ensure that they're printable and usable. So that's all I have, and we'd love to hear your feedback. Thank you so much for listening.
I have some questions.
Yeah.
I will stand over here. So can you describe a first task that will provide a sanity check of the whole system?
Mhm.
Feeding it lots of complicated STL files and giving it instructions doesn't sound like the right way to train a system. A really simple STL file with a simple prompt would probably be a good way to get a sense of whether it will work. How do you see that developing?
Yeah, we didn't talk about it here, but a big part of the research phase and part of the reason we've allocated so much time to it in the timeline is that it's not just a literature review. We'll also be doing those benchmark tests that you're talking about For instance, starting with really simple geometries like cubes or spheres, and then checking to see if reasoning models can resize those properly. And then from there, moving to more and more complex models until we think that we understand what a reasoning model can do with something like a prosthetic hand.
That's great. I'd be very interested in seeing even those early tests. It is plausible, for example, that a system in which the LLM manipulates a CAD program may be another way of doing it, rather than asking the LLM to understand all of the instructions that need to be given to a 3D printer. These are great preliminary questions, and I think you should really flesh them out
Yeah.
before going further.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think your technical challenge is going to be labeling the parts. So it's supposedly going to be working with meshes mostly, right? Like an STL file or an OBJ file of one of these assets. And I think it would be great if you picked like one hand platform to work with. And I probably wouldn't do one of the ones with 3D printed hardware, like screws, like the parts that hold all the printed parts together, because those are already scaling fairly well when you scale the whole set. But maybe one that relies on screws a little more, and then labeling in the model, like this is a screw hole that we want to keep consistent, and this is like the part of the model that you would take a measurement of someone's physiology for. I think this could be really interesting if you took like a lot of the stuff from either the devices catalog or the NIH 3D print exchange, but then you would have to additionally do some data labeling, right, to get some good metadata around like what is a screw hole and what is the interface that touches the human and which parts of that are significant. I think the data curation stage would be very important.
Got it.
But I agree with your approach of starting with simple shapes. And maybe just adding like one level of complexity, like a square with a screw hole, and seeing if you can make the square change size, but the screw hole change like stay the same, and then scaling up. I like how John always wants to scaffold things and like a research roadmap with smaller chunks. But if you get that to work, it leads to the bigger chunk.
Mm-hmm.
And your timeline for the whole project is to be done by the end of the summer or like into the fall a little bit?
Into the fall a little bit. We're hoping to complete most of the work over the summer. But there's inevitably going to be roadblocks that we haven't anticipated yet. And
Yeah.
we're probably anticipating the scope to not be identical to what I'm presenting to you today, and it'll change as we start to understand the technology a bit better. But this is what we're hoping to get done by the end of the summer. And from the research we've done so far, we think it's feasible.
Yeah, it's super cool. It's a great moment for e-NABLE. And this has been a pain point forever. Like one of the most technically difficult parts of using this open source hardware is adapting it to someone's unique physiology. And if you can leverage an emerging LLM tool to make that more accessible, I think you could have like a hugely useful tool for the whole community. And even
We're
more than
excited.
your raw output, I think some of your research around this, like making sure that you release like a tutorial that's really good, or like have a Git repository that people can build on. I think it's a first reach into a really exciting new technology.
Mhm.
Any other comments from anyone else here? I'd love to hear what Jonathan thinks too, because Jonathan's very involved with people who are actually taking these files and doing things with them every week.
Yeah, the computer side of thing is beyond my capability of understanding. So I'll let you guys understand the learning stuff. But yeah, I think with e-NABLE, one of the biggest hurdles we have is the communication factor of getting measurements from prospective recipients, and you know, crossing communication through different countries and languages and stuff. So I'm interested to see how this learning stuff comes through.
Thank you.
I had a question. But I don't mean to kind of ask for enhancements, but this could be just me trying to get my hands around what you've just brought us up to speed, right? So, does this take does does this have a feature that lets it adapt to uniquely, well, not uniquely, differently, different kind of body parts, right? Like uh, there could be people who have upper limb differences that are not like, just say everyone's different, right? So does this kind of self measure itself and give itself some feedback to kind of fit in into those tiny corners, kind of?
Yeah, it's primarily focused on the tiny recorners. Maybe if we keep working on it a couple of years down the line, we'd like to be able to enable a model to enable to work with more abstract suggestions, say changing the overall design. But right now it's sort of out of the scope of what we think that we would be able to do, but also probably what a reasoning LLM can do at this point in time. But it would definitely be a really cool idea to generate models from scratch or produce really heavy modifications. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. No, thank you. I didn't mean to kind of take this in the wrong direction, but it was just me trying to understand. Yeah. Thank
No,
you.
I think that's super helpful. And I think this goes to the core of the research question is what is the minimum set of measurements that are meaningful,
Hmm.
right? And if we can keep the hardware the same and adapt, maybe you're starting from 3 measurements of the upper limb. But eventually, I think that's right on. Like inputting a 3D file, like if we could have like 3D scanning is getting more accessible, the ultimate research goal is to take a 3D model of the upper limb difference and adapt it completely. Sort of like if you look at what Hugh Herr's lab's doing at the MIT Media Lab about making compatible materials that are soft where the human tissue is hard and hard where the human tissue is soft, right? That mimicry of the upper limb. But I think as your research roadmap, that might be a little further along, but it's a great question to keep in mind. And then it starts from what is the minimum set of measurements to make something useful.
It occurs to me that there's a conceptual opportunity here. If you think about a shape, when you think about, for example, the shape of a socket, when I think about the shape of a socket, I do not think in terms of a bunch of 3D printer gestures, which is, if you will, the language of STLs. I think in terms of a visual contour. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if an LLM can wrap its head around a contour much more easily than an STL file or an OBJ file or something along those lines. And that then once you have the contour, it's a much simpler and an already solved problem of how you go from a contour to a mesh to printing instructions. And so that seems to me to be a fundamental question that you could investigate. And the simple result there might actually be a contribution by itself, just saying, well, no, that's the to the LLM, it's all code, and the computer code of the SDL is perfectly digestible. I doubt that. I suspect that some kind of geometric formulation for surfaces would be a much simpler data set to have the LLM input, to have it modified by changing a few parameters of the 3D contour that you're producing. And it would then output something that could then be algorithmically fed into a machine that goes from contours to printing instructions. So thinking about the whole hierarchy, the great chain of being for shapes, and figuring out what the right level is to engage the LLM is, I think, a good fundamental question.
Hmm. Thank you.
And I think the most important thing, like John is mentioning, is to document like what resources you're using. And this can start from just a Google Doc, but eventually presenting it somewhere publicly so that the next group can build upon all of your discoveries and reach further.
Got it.
Super cool.
Thank you.
So I guess your next step would be putting this through Lumio governance.
Mm-hmm. That's what we're planning on. We have a draft already typed up, but we wanted to present again and elicit some feedback. So thank you so much, guys, for all of the thoughts on our project. We're really excited to start working on it.
John, do you think
Yeah,
that's a
thank you.
good next step, is just to put it up to vote for the community so they can get moving?
To be honest, I think right now it's a very risky proposition. I think wrestling some of these preliminary issues to the ground, like how you're going to proceed and whether, some estimates about the complexity of an STL file versus some kind of a vector format or contour file and so on, would make sense. $7,500 is a significant amount for our reasonable budget, and I think the community wants to have some confidence that something useful will come of it. So thinking through a way of demonstrating the usefulness to the community, not just the coolness to the technologist, is going to be important in getting approval.
All right, got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, that's super helpful. Make sure you have some traction, a proof of concept. Cool. Well, if
That's
the
it.
Maker Lab can help you with any computational resources, let me know.
Great, thank you.
We will.
So that's great. I was on and off again, but did we get a chance to talk to Gunta and understand whether, for example, her connections to India are relevant to the discussion we had in the last meeting?
We have not, but let's start the next topic. That's a great one.
Gunta, are you still with us?
Gotha.
I beg your pardon.
Gotha, are you here? I sent along the contact information for the chapters that we have in Texas. Gotha's in Texas.
Got it.
But so I hope that's useful. And yeah, if you want to talk about what you're interested in doing, maybe we can point you in a direction.
No, I can definitely, help out in any kind of activity, So I'm based out of Texas, and I can offer whatever services are useful at this point, right? I'm having some technology background, but I'm not into, writing code, but I do have some technology background. So, whichever way you can, make use of my time, I'm willing to. I can definitely, be of use if it's coordinating with the volunteers or, getting people to, collect feedback or whatever, right? Yeah.
Well, that's great, Gata. Can you tell us, and I'm sorry if you've already done this, but can you tell us a little bit more about what you and your husband's experience is and what you do and what your skill sets are?
My husband's also a technology professional. He's a program manager, and I'm a project manager. Um, how we got involved in some of this 3D printing kind of groups is primarily because of our need. My son has upper limb difference because of traumatic sepsis situation that we went through 10 years ago. So that's how we started getting involved and seeing, because every situation is unique. That's why I was asking that question, right? Because it was an accident, so every situation is unique, and you really have to do a custom thing, right, every time. So we've been, trying to see, because sometimes feedback matters from families like us. Um, to shorten that feedback loop is probably the best, easiest thing I can definitely offer to do, right? Like if there are people who are in need, but what is the specifics of their need, right? There is no point doing a mass production here, right? This is a classic example of this is not a factory cookie cutter model that we need to have. So that's where I've always felt passionate about. And hey, we need to send there. There is definitely somebody who can solve this problem for somebody in the world, right? But how do we connect those two dots is my,
Mm.
kind of thing. I can definitely, I think the easiest I can definitely offer to do is, be that person who can help coordinate and, collect feedback from people who are, going to try it on. That's definitely something I can do. But if you need me to do something that's more valuable to, what you need at this point, I can definitely ramp up and learn to do it too. So
That's
I'm here
tremendous.
to learn and
Amazing.
relearn. Yeah.
That's super helpful for the e-NABLE community. I think right now a lot of that's being triaged through the town halls and through the hub. And you found us through the hub. So as questions come up there, I think knowing the right person to connect for the right question is a huge part of mobilizing the e-NABLE community.
Gotha, do you have
Yeah, I
a
agree.
profile on the hub?
I can confirm. I think I did that, Sarah, earlier this week, but I can confirm right after this meeting.
Okay.
And
I'll just put a link to the e-NABLE hub in the chat.
Sure. Yeah.
it's very exciting, Gotha. Can you tell us more about your son's condition? Is it relevant? Is it an upper limb condition? And did he get a prosthetic?
No, so yeah, I can walk you through quickly. So this was 10 years ago, 2015, started as a fever, high fever. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we visited our PCP. We went to the ER twice. Everyone said it's just, flu. I had strep, and I've been telling the ER to, hey, can you check on strep? And they're like, oh, it's not red. I don't think we should be doing a strep test too, right? So um, 3 ER visits and one physician visit over the weekend. And Monday night, he starts having difficulty breathing. He's been having temperatures all through. And then we go back to the same ER, and they take him into ICU. And they find that his strep is spread to the blood all through the body. They have to intubate him, and yeah, third day, hence we kind of see the necrosis on the left hand, left upper extremities, and on the right side. And the sepsis gets all the way, it just progresses all the way until where the, I forget the medical word, where the IV is, yeah, where the IV is stuck. And they have to keep changing the IV just to stop the sepsis and the necrosis. But long story short, 18 days of intubation, plasmapheresis, dialysis, a whole lot of antibiotics later, 18 days of that. He finally is out of intubation and he starts responding. Fever subsides. But the casualty was all of his left fingers, including the thumb. So he has his palm, but he's got a scar, like a third-degree burn, all the way up to his elbow on the left hand. And he loses his first digits of all four fingers of the right hand. Just the top part of his right thumb was lost, but he that's the good part, that he has grasp with his right hand. His right two fingers fused because of the impact of the whole infection. So we have been doing reconstructive surgeries. We have done four or five surgeries, including, separating the fingers, grafting the skin, because his left wrist, and that's why I was asking that question, his left wrist is now twisted in like a C, right? Primarily, and now we are discovering that every time we go for a hand surgeon visit, because maybe the nerves were damaged at that point, and now the, bones stopped growing. One of the bones stopped growing, but the other one is growing faster than the. So we are finding things as he ages. He's 13 now, and this happened when he was 3.5. So
See,
each visit we figure out things, and that's the reason our hand surgeon, we're lucky to have a good doctor around in UT Southwestern. So they have been recommending us to work with one of the prosthetic centers, but his recommendation is let him learn how to deal with it. And as he ages and needs proper prosthesis, maybe for work or whatever, then we figure it out at that point of time, right? So right now it's mostly hey, kind of dealing with how does he deal with it?
sure.
How does he talk about it? How does he tackle how people look at him? And, so we are just working on all of that, right? As a family, we are growing together through what we went through. He's been doing great. He cannot put buttons on, he cannot tie shoelaces, but I don't see that impacting at the moment. Like there are one-off orchestra and band performances that I'm kind of, hey, I have to help you out. But then those are things we kind of figure out. So definitely, we are figuring out. I'm letting him figure out. But at some point in his life, he'll need these prostheses, right? So this is why I feel this time is important for me to come and give feedback wherever how it
Absolutely.
matters. Yeah. So that's kind of the situation. And, because each year we discover something about his
Sure.
difference, right? Because maybe some nerve endings are still working, but then the wrist is twisted. So that was one of the feedback I got from the prosthetic center. All our upper limb manufactured prosthetics assume that the person does not have the palm. It is connected at the wrist. So, one technician was like, "Oh, I wish he didn't have the palm." And I'm like, "Oh my God, okay." Because I know I've spent hours praying just for that, right? So it's not in a bad way, but sometimes we just make it such a cookie cutter driven process
That's right.
that
That's
we
exactly right.
forget what has happened. But I don't want to take too much time, but
No,
I
Gautha, we don't get the opportunity to talk to somebody like you very often. So this is very, very interesting and very helpful.
okay.
I do have a few more questions. So he's 13. You mentioned band and orchestra. What does he do?
He plays the piano and he also plays the trombone. He's into air rifle shooting. Actually, he's gone for practice, and we are going for the nationals tomorrow to Anniston. At this point, we are in a situation we are trying to work with USA Shooting because he's not getting classified as a Paralympian because that's where the system is so unilateral, right? The system says he doesn't have deformity, but he has, and he's not able to hold the gun like any of us. He doesn't have those digits to pull the trigger. He cannot use the pellets and load it as fast as another athlete can. uh, so I just finished a bunch of paperwork with USA Shooting and worked with the doctors and explaining, hey, this is what has happened. He cannot do things like the rest of us, but the fact that he's trying to do it does not mean that we can kind of keep doing it to him, right? So yes, we are at a it's a unique situation, and we'll have to kind of redefine some of our maybe
Sure.
checklist questions, if we were to call it, right? Because there are some of these screening questions that he falls through them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
So I wonder, are there, so he's clearly coping wonderfully with the musical instruments and with the riflery. Are there any mechanical devices that he or you use to make the bridge? No. So right now you're just teaching him how to cope with what he has.
yeah, he used a 3D printed arm long time ago, but that was so. What is happening is you either have to sacrifice your sense of touch to be able to use that large prosthetic for somebody of his age, right? So it was a natural choice for a boy of his age. Hey, I don't want that. I might as well just touch these
Sure.
things and feel, because that's a sensory perception is important for them, right? I mean, for
Absolutely.
anyone too, right? So that was one of the biggest feedback we gave to our 3D printer volunteer. But we did try like short-term prosthetics for badminton and things of that sort. But I think the comfort was probably what was coming in the way, right? For a small child and in the heat of Texas, he was like, "Ah, I don't want to do it. I can still figure out without that, right?" He's probably getting to a point where he's able to converse about this more openly because I've been his voice, seeing what's going through and explaining. But I'm guessing newer engagements I'm going to involve him so he's able to give the feedback, right? He's old enough to give
Fantastic.
the yeah.
Well, Gata, we look forward to meeting him and figuring out a way of taking advantage of your really extraordinary perspective and experience here.
So thank you so much for
w-
sharing your story. It's very powerful. And I think there's a lot that we can learn from talking to you.
No, likewise. And I think I want to make sure I'm able to help in whatever regard. So please feel free to, please don't hesitate to ask me, can you do this? Because, I can definitely try to learn and definitely help out.
Well, I have a few more questions. So
Yeah,
you
sure.
have interacted with e-NABLE volunteers in the past, correct?
Um, I have not, honestly. My first interaction was a couple of days back, but my husband's has, and he's been watching, right? So I think he's probably had more insight into this, but I'm
Okay,
probably the newer member on the block.
that's okay. It'd be great to get his perspective also. Um,
Yeah.
Jonathan clearly should keep an eye out for cases of, we do periodically get queries from parents or relatives or people who know a young person who could use a device like this. And having someone like you acting as a liaison might be very, very useful, because you're articulate and you obviously are fluent in the parents' side of these issues. In a way that many of our volunteers are not. So we'll think about that. The other thing is, it is rare to have technically proficient parents and a child who are all working on this together. If there is a particular opportunity or challenge or problem that you would like to work on with us and your son and your husband, that would be a really interesting uh, opportunity. Uh, and as you may have heard us mention earlier, prosthetics are not the only relevant device. There may be other assistive technologies for holding instruments or opening doors or opening jars of things that we can develop and adapt with your and your son's and your husband's collaboration. So we would be very open to understanding more about the opportunities for collaboration in your situation.
Sure. Yeah. So let me connect back, with my family because I know some time ago we were like pursuing a drummer kind of hand, and then now this the air rifle is kind of the in thing for him. So let me regroup because we are trying to just make sure my son, his name is Abhinav understands that, hey, we are here to help him. He doesn't have to kind of, oh, I won't be able to do it. Why even tell this to my parents, kind of, right? So we are trying to encourage him and also sensitize him the same thing, right? Hey, there are solutions to all problems. Only thing is you need to elucidate your problem, right? So I'll definitely put in we'll figure out and we'll definitely
Sure.
let you know.
You
It's
know,
always
one
good to
one
have a channel.
absolutely. One conceptual framework that we found useful is to make sure that the customer, that your son understands that he's potentially an absolutely indispensable test pilot. When you're developing new aircraft, you need brave and adventurous individuals who are willing to help you figure out what's not working and what needs to happen and so on. And they're very hard to come by. And it's not a matter of whether he can do something or not. It's a matter of whether he can tell us what we need to do, what's working and what isn't. So
Yeah.
having him think about it that way, I think might take some of the psychological pressure off and help him understand how important and valuable his input will be, even if he tells us this is stupid, I don't want to use this. That's a really helpful input that
Right.
we would appreciate.
Yeah, no, I hear you there. And that's what is one of the things I'm noticing myself, that he's a teenager himself, he knows things. So these are things I am also growing through these 10 years of, and I'm also trying to take a step back and stop being his, voice, because I know he probably has a choice that could be different from mine, and that is always different from mine. Yes, I hear you there, and we definitely will be, interested to help
Great.
out in that. Yeah.
Very good. And for that matter, there may be Brandeis or other students who can provide other opportunities for collaboration and development as it goes. The opportunity you've given us is to figure out how to take the best advantage of the opportunity you've offered us. We're going to need your help in that too, Gatha. It's actually rare for us to have an opportunity like this, and we'll need your help figuring out how to make the most of it.
Sure. Likewise, I'm just my contact information is there, and I'll keep my profile updated so that way.
Great, great. Listen, I need to find out why I'm still sitting in the rental car office, so I'm going to excuse myself. I'll try to come back.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you came today. And I think there's a huge opportunity for collaboration. Hopefully, we can provide some value to you and your family. But you have a very unique perspective and powerful story that I think will make a huge contribution to e-NABLE.
Yeah, likewise. I think it's just baby steps, right? And I know this is not going to be overnight. So I'm just, whatever baby steps we can walk together, welcome to do that.
So we have about 15-ish minutes left until we need to start wrapping up. I wanted to give an opportunity for anyone else in the meeting who wants to bring up a next topic.
And I also wanted to say, Gata, I don't think I see your name on the hub. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to email me about setting up a profile on the hub. It should be pretty easy to do, but you can introduce yourself there and ask questions there, and you can also reach out to the Texas chapters. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah,
and
sure, Sarah.
yeah, we're really, really glad to have you. And Sana, did you wanna ask any questions or share anything? It's okay if not. But
And you can also see if Jonathan wants to check in on anything while we're here.
I don't think I have anything.
Well, we may have exhausted our topics for this session, but a very lively session. This is a great recording for us to share with others. I think that first presentation, Erica and Ben, you could use this recording and feedback to catch your team up, but also it's a great pitch if you want to get feedback. You could repost this. One follow-up for the Brandeis team might be to repost this recording on the hub and ask for further comments, because that's a great way to engage with the community a little bit more. And Ganta, I think if you wanted to continue this conversation, the town halls would be a great place. But also, Jonathan has been ravenous on the hub, triaging all of the questions that don't get a quick answer. And he might be a great person to throw some things your way too. And I do think one of our biggest challenges is that matchmaking, that like making sure that when requests come through, there's someone who can take the lead on following up about those requests.
Got it. Okay. And Sarah is my point of contact for everything of such questions, right? Once my hub profile is updated.
Yeah, Sarah
She
knows the
is,
whole
and
organization and is our leader and coordinator across
Okay.
where everyone is and what we can do.
Got it. Okay.
And my email is jschull, JSCHULL @e-NABLE.org with a hyphen. And you should feel free to write me. I'm, as you can see, I tend to be busy, but this is a rare opportunity for us. So feel free.
Got it. Thank you,
And
everyone. I did, yeah.
if anyone needs any help with 3D printer troubleshooting, I think I'm always happy to help. Jonathan is also a super pro on the 3D design and fabrication side. I think that's where we're strong. The other thing that I'm always very interested in is integrating this into coursework. So if there's an opportunity to find groups of students or faculty that want to use e-NABLE's resources, or I think the highest bar is to actually work with recipients as a research project or a classroom project.
Agreed.
For example, Gatha, if your son ever wanted to now or in the future have a college or graduate student mentor who would both maybe teach him some 3D skills, but also get his feedback about device design or fixing the built environment to be accessible or specific use case. I think those relationships between students and younger kids can be very powerful for both.
Got it. Yeah. Yep.
So that may be the end of our topics, unless John, you had another one. We pulled the room while you were gone, and we were doing our next steps for things brought up, but there wasn't an additional topic surfaced.
Okay. No, I don't have anything else at the moment. Great to see you all.
Great to see everyone always, and this is a great recording to reference. Again, I think it's great for the Brandeis team to get more feedback. And Ganta and Jonathan, we will see you on the hub, I'm sure.
And actually, Sarah, if you can stay connected when everyone hangs up, we can catch up too.
Sure.
Excellent. Great to see
Bye,
everyone.
everybody. Thank you.
We'll be back next month, and we'll be at the Bionics in just a week or two.
Terrific.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day,
Okay,
everyone.